The thing about being authentic is it will hold us accountable. It will force us to be consistent because as soon as you get out of alignment, you feel it. You see it in your relationships, whether that's with your partners, your children, professionally. And so when you do get out of alignment, because we are human, it happens. The goal here is not perfection. The goal here is increased self-awareness.
Welcome to the podcast, The Whole and Complete Woman, where we provide practical tips and strategies for achieving your health, wealth, and relationship goals and desires. Yes, I said desires because God does not put desires in our heart just to tease us. So it is important to me that you are empowered with the tools and resources to not only fulfill your goals, but to create a life you love and create a legacy. Because the people that come after us, they are dependent on us to pave a way. So I congratulate you for being here. Not only will today's content help your future self, but also those that come behind us. And that looks different for everyone, which I love. So let's go ahead and dive into today's topic and introduce my guest. So today we have Shayla here. Hello, Shayla. Welcome.
Hello, hello. How are you?
Good. So, a little bit about Shayla. So, Shayla has not only education, but tons of certifications. She has nearly 2 decades of real world senior HR leadership experience and emerged as an authority in leadership development, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and culture creation in leading Fortune 500 companies. So, Shayla has a proven track record in the private sector. She's received the 2022 Lifetime Achievement Award that was presented by President Joseph R. Biden. And now she's the CEO of a consulting firm making a global impact around the world and challenging the norms, systems, and practices in the corporate landscape to basically level the playing field for every person and to help businesses thrive. She's the author of the Culture Compass, which is a LinkedIn newsletter. She is the best-selling author of Black Women Lead with Spice. She is an award-winning DEI leader. The most innovative DEI team is what she had. And she also has a bachelor's degree in organizational development and leadership. That's not it, though. She's also a Lean Six Sigma Black Belt, certified DEI leader, and she is a sought after keynote speaker. She's a trainer and facilitator. I get the privilege of being her friend as well. So Shayla is a friend, a mother, and a wife. So we are so happy to have you here today, Shayla. So tell me, how did you first become interested in DEI, authenticity, and how did you see it, the need for it to fit into your life?
So first and foremost, thank you for that amazing introduction. It's one of those like, oh my gosh, that I do all of that. And I love the most important titles of wife, mother, and friend out of all of the accolades. But when I think about the authenticity and the journey, it's actually not only it's my personal story and my professional journey and how that came about. And I remember in my corporate career, this was during the time till before DEI was a trend and buzzword. I was doing the work. It was called organizational effectiveness, organizational development, organizational psychology, right? But I want to share a story of how this really came about. I was in supply chain, really proving myself, right? I got my Lean Six Sigma Black Belt certification and I'm saving the company like tons of money. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I've made it. So I'm preparing for this big meeting. huge meeting. This is with my, my site VP. We're going to talk about my career, my promotion. And I'm like, okay, I'm ready. And I go into the meeting and I'm nervous. And he starts off super positive. Shayla, you are amazing. You deliver results. You're reliable. I mean, I can't talk about the millions of dollars you saved this company. And I'm like on the edge of my seat, like, okay, and I'm going to get promoted, right? And he's like, we love having you here. And I'm like, come on, let's get to it. And he's like, but you just don't have the intangibles. So the face you just made is exactly the face that I made. The what? He was like, the intangibles, the look,
Oh,
the image, the
okay.
executive presence.
Mm.
And I'm going to age myself. I'm in my early 20s and I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, just that image of leadership and what we're looking for. And leadership has a look. There's an image. There's an executive presence. You just don't have that. Now, someone has said that to me today. We'll be having a real different conversation. But back then, that one conversation became the catalyst for 10 years of covering, code switching, and conforming.
Mm.
I
Wow.
didn't have a mentor at the time. I didn't really have anybody in my corner. I didn't have a personal board of directors to help me, guide me, navigate that conversation, how to take that, and what do I do? I started covering. I changed my hair. I changed the way I dressed. I didn't wear color. I wore black and gray. And I started to create this image, right? So back then, I mean, it's still horrible now, where women make up maybe 18 to 20% of C-suite. Back then it was even less. So I was creating this persona that didn't have anybody like me in mind, right? And I did that for a decade. And I will be very transparent in saying I was conflicted for about the first 6 years or so because it was working. I was climbing the corporate ladder, like it was working. And I was like, well, this is what you have to do. You have to sacrifice your identity at all costs to be successful. And that's how I got into it. Was my personal story. It's not how the story ends, but that is how I got into authenticity, the need for it. So if you were to look up in the dictionary imposter syndrome, shrinking, covering, you would have found me. I was like, yep, that's me. Yeah.
Wow. So, a lot of our listeners are high achieving women. They are professional women, corporate women, entrepreneurs, and can find them in these places of code
Mm-hmm.
switching or changing who they are. So, what are some common misconceptions about authenticity in leadership, especially for women?
Especially. One, I love that question. Most people think authenticity is about how real you can be. Can I show up? Can I be real? It's not about how real you can be. And I always ask women that I work with, are you living in alignment to your values and beliefs?
Mm. That's a good question right there.
Authenticity is about alignment. And for me, during that journey, I wasn't aligned with my identity. I wasn't aligned with what my career goals were. I wasn't in line. I just was not in alignment. I had no idea. I just knew I was married to the outcome of climbing the corporate career ladder. That was it.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
So, what are some of the signs that can indicate a woman may be out of alignment with her authentic self, especially in her leadership roles or even in her life in general?
Yeah, yeah. So I'll speak to the leadership role first. So I mentioned that first 6 or 7 years I was working. But around that time, my performance and my career started to plateau. My performance started to go roller coaster. It was up and down. I was inconsistent. You can only live the facade for so long. So I was going in and out of the facade. My performance was reflecting that. My career is plateauing. My personal life, I was code switching even with my family. People are like, who are you? Because you can only maintain the facade and knowing when to adapt and to code switch and to cover in these different environments for so long. It is not sustainable. And when it was actually on my journey to becoming a mother, which was a very long journey, that was a 5-year journey, and that's probably a whole nother podcast conversation. Um, but I found myself, and I say this often, is that when I gave birth to my twin girls, and I'm telling them, we want more than what our kids, right? We want our kids to have more than what we have, right? And I'm motivating them, and I literally had to look myself in the mirror, and I was a hypocrite. I'm telling them to like, yeah, go change the world, be yourself. You're so beautiful, love yourself. And I did not embody any of those things
Wow. Our
at
children
all.
are literally the best teachers. They teach us
They
so much and
are.
reflect back to us things where God is wanting to change us and grow us. So,
Yes.
what a beautiful gift.
Yes. Yes. That experience was, I would say that was the turning point. Um, I make a joke that I left maternity leave. I was a fraud. I was a facade. But when I came back, I was fierce.
Ooh,
And I
I like
came
that.
back
Tell us
and
more about
yeah.
that.
Oh yeah, when I came back, I was fierce. I remember when I came back, I was gone for a while because I had twins and I had a
Mhm.
cesarean. So I was out for a while. And again, so I'm motivating them and telling them all these affirmations and amazing things. And I remember when I came back, right when I come back, I had a really big board meeting. And this board meeting was asking for, millions of dollars for, a diverse recruiting strategy, right? I came back, I cut all my hair off, which you see today. I
Love
had
it.
color, and I remember having my big wooden earrings, and I had on my bright color, suit, my power suit, but it was yellow, and I just showed up. And I went in there with so much confidence. I wasn't overcompensating to try to make myself be the smartest person in the room. There were also oftentimes, sometimes I used to shrink myself if I felt intimidated or if I didn't want to appear arrogant. I had to remain humble. But I went in there with confidence and I was like, we need the $10 million. Here's why. Here's the outcome. And if you don't, provide it, here's what could happen. And that's that. And I remember the board members, it was two of them. They said almost at the same time, there she is.
Ooh.
And
Wow,
they
there
said,
she is.
there she is. We've been waiting for her.
Wow.
And I was like, what? We've been waiting for her to show up.
Wow. Sometimes the people that need us the most, they are literally waiting on us to show up fully in our authentic self. Wow, I absolutely love that. So, in your book, Black Women Lead with Spice, you talk
Yes.
a lot about overcoming imposter syndrome and self doubt. What are some things that women can do to really step into their authentic leadership?
So, one about the imposter syndrome, the very first thing is we have to learn the source. So, not only was this personal experience, I've studied imposter syndrome for years. And there are common sources. We have to find the source. Oftentimes, this could be from our childhood and where we could have been raised into environments where we were taught and told to shrink. If you grew up in any type of like poverty or anything like that, any type of survivor's remorse brings about imposter syndrome. Oh yeah, right. So we think that our success is a fluke. We could be found out, right? And that was my story, right? Was that survivor's remorse, making it out. Why me? I'm going to be found out. I don't belong here. So once you find the source and heal the source first, and healed that little girl, that teenage girl, and heal her first. The very first step, I am a big proponent of therapy. I had to go to therapy, right? And heal that little girl and tell that little girl, it's okay that you talk too much. It's okay that you are smart and know the answer. Like, it's okay. You did not, leave your family behind because you made it out. Like, you can let go of that guilt. And then as a leader, once you've healed her, as a leader, the alignment journey begins. And one of the very first things I ask women to do is to describe themselves or tell me who you are without using a label.
Mm, that's a
You
good activity there.
It's an amazing activity. You cannot use your job title, your marital status, your parental status, degrees, certifications, and women are stuck. They're like, I, 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 you know, I don't know. I've put all these labels on to define my identity. And once you realize you are so much more, that translates into how you articulate your value on the job. That translates to how you show up. That translates to your next job interview. That translates to you asking for the promotion and not waiting on it. That translates to you asking for the raise and saying, here's why. Because you know that those labels, right, do not define you.
Yeah.
And that
Ooh,
is
I
my
love
advice
that.
to women is to like get to know who you are without the labels. You will find
Mm.
out how amazing you are.
Wow, I absolutely love that. Yes,
Yes.
without defining ourselves with all of these labels, what's there when you pull all of that back. And
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes we find that it is something so beautiful and so unique and so powerful. And being able to step into that and walk into that is really like doing God's work in our life, because we're
Yeah,
really in alignment with who we really are. So I'm
absolutely.
going to shift gears just a little
Okay.
bit, kind of, but I want to hear about your goal setting. I know that prior and part of your transformation is how you set goals. So tell us a little bit about that.
That was part of that healing journey. And I love that question. So during that healing journey and climbing that corporate ladder, I used to set my goals from a place of pain. It was, I got to prove them wrong. It was from a place of vengeance. It was from a place of survival. And I was operating out of survival mode. Now, when I set my goals, they're coming from a place of peace, a place of impact. What is the impact I want to make? And I always say the money follows the purpose. The money follows the impact. It's a byproduct. And I used to set I want to make this amount of dollars by the time I'm 30 and right, like I got to prove them wrong. I made it out the hood and, all of that. And so that's what was fueling that burnout. That's what's fueling that hustle and that grind. Once I healed that little girl and became setting us from a place of what is my purpose and the impact I'm here to make. And then the goals became more, again, purpose driven. And then how I measured it could be income, revenue, promotion, and raise, but that wasn't the goal, right? That wasn't the outcome. So I would just say that was me. It was shifting them from a place of pain to a place of peace and
Yeah,
how I set
I
them.
I love that. And I have, you know my story, but very similar. I set very high income goals for myself after
Mm-hmm.
getting divorced. And I literally was doing something that I didn't necessarily love, but was very financially rewarding. And I was always like, once I get this amount of money in the bank, then I'm going to do what I really love. And
It's
I
never good
kept
enough.
going though. It was never good enough. I hit that goal, then hit the next goal. And at some point, life happens, and there's those things that will wake you up, And for me, it was a miscarriage. at 17 weeks that kind of shook me. Like, what's, you know, what are
Yes.
you doing, you know, and what do you really want to do, and how do you want to serve and live in your purpose? And that imposter syndrome, along with the survivor's remorse, is so real, you know. And tell me a little bit about how you step into your power around wealth and things like that, and not having guilt for being successful.
So that's an ongoing daily journey.
Yeah.
That is a
Yep.
daily journey. That I don't know. I'm going to answer my question based off of where I am today, not from a place of perfection, by no means.
Yeah. It's
And
always, we are always working out our salvation and being made whole. So everything is a journey.
I love that. Yes. And I 100% agree. And so again, that therapy piece, right? Was critical is it healed a lot, of feeling guilty, um, feeling like you leave your family behind, of being successful and you want to. And I started to partake in detrimental behaviors to go back and save my family. And I was trying to save people who didn't necessarily want to be saved. And burning myself out trying to save because I'm like, oh my gosh, I know you can do so much better. If I made it out, I know you can. I promise. Like, you just one choice, you just one decision. No. And someone told me this, and she said, you're not lucky, you're chosen. You were chosen by God. And she gave me a scripture to study, and it was the story of Lot in the Bible. And Lot's story is all about separation. God sometimes has to separate us from the people we love so that you can see your power, see your purpose, and take action on it. And I studied Lot's story about separation and not feeling guilty about it and being chosen, because it was like, but why me, right? Why not my whole family? And it was, you were chosen to be an example. You were chosen to change the trajectory for your family. And now I'm going to have to separate you, as painful as that is, in order for you to fully live out your purpose. That
Yeah,
was
and it's
that
an
was
act of obedience too, is what I
the
hear. It's
act
not
of
even like
obedience.
God chose you or us. You know, it's like God has a purpose and a calling on everyone's life, but there is an act of obedience of walking in that,
Yes,
you know,
the
and we can't
obedience.
take on when other people just aren't seeing their potential. We can inspire, we can help, you know, help in a sometimes from a distance, you know, but like you said, if you're going back and you're always trying to save everybody, that some people don't want to be saved, you know, they don't want to be pulled out from their situation right now. Some people are addicted to certain levels of suffering. You know, there's some type of payout that they're getting on the other end of it. And we can all look at our lives in different areas where there's things that aren't working and then look like, well, there's something that you probably get out of that, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah.
Um if there's some kind of payout why we're allowing
Mm,
a certain level of suffering in our lives. So we have to let people be on their journeys too, and also see people as big people, you know, like, and see them as able and capable of hearing from God, walking in his purpose, and, you know, moving forward and out of the situations that they're in right now. So I love that story of Lot right there that you were talking about. um I don't want to forget to ask you something. I want to talk about that situation, that story that you started with, where the executive, or I can't remember who it
oh,
was, but he said you didn't have the intangibles,
the
you know.
intangibles.
So, what are some strategies for Black and brown women to really navigate and thrive in a predominantly white, male dominated leadership spaces while remaining authentic?
I'll tell you my strategies. They're gonna be an unpopular opinion. Just to let y'all know, but
Okay,
that's
we
just
like that
that's just
here.
me. That's just who I am. Like to ruffle feathers, like to disrupt some things.
We
But the
need that.
first, yes. So first and foremost is this was hard for me because I'm actually naturally an introvert, and I was, raised and taught go to work, keep your head down, do a good job, your work will speak for itself, and you'll just get promoted. Right? Wrong. Like it doesn't work that way. And so my very first strategy for women is to have a board of directors, your own personal board of directors. And I'm talking play chess. Who are strategic mentors, strategic sponsors, strategic champions that will speak your name in rooms when you're not there? As much as I know we want to prove we're high achievers, we prove that we can put on these bootstraps. No. And that's rooted in that myth of meritocracy that, oh, we can just bootstrap ourselves way to success. No, it's about relationships. So my very first one is to create your own personal board of directors within your organization, across your organization, not just in your function or discipline. Play chess. Who has the CEO's ear? Who has the C-suite's ear? Right? And have some very strategic and mutually beneficial relationships. The second one in navigating is once you get clear on who you are without the labels, you become very self-aware in environments in which you thrive. And my second strategy is to create those environments in which you thrive. Meaning I teach people how to interact with me. I teach people how to treat me. So if I'm in a meeting, I'll just give a practical example. If I'm in a meeting and it's Shayla, can you weigh in? I know I'm naturally a processor. So I said, I'll let the conversation evolve before I weigh in. I'll weigh in later on. Okay, great, no problem. I'm not going to put myself in a situation to where I know I can't show up. I know if I'm naturally a processor, I'm going to create the environment around me in which I know I can thrive in and teach people they know now how to interact. Don't ask Shayla first. Let her process, and I'm going to give you an amazing methodical answer and solution that you're going to love. Like, so but you have to get clear on who you are underneath all those labels, right? And my last one I would share is as high achieving women. If your audience has a lot of high achieving women of color, we have no problem with performance. We are the most educated group on this planet. The statistics show it. We know how to get things done. This is where I'm going to ruffle your feathers.
Come
I
on, bring
need
it.
you I need you to understand how to articulate the value you deliver. We are amazing at telling people unintentionally how busy we are, that we can multitask, that you can have, great capacity and time management skills because we're listing out all the things that we can do. And we're listing out all of the tasks. When I need you to understand the value, the impact, quantify it, qualify it, the value that you deliver. That's what carves out a career. That's what carves out a leadership. And that's what makes you stand out authentically as yourself. We spend a lot of time getting the degrees and all of these things just to fit in with the bunch. And we're upset about it. What are you doing to uniquely and authentically stand out? Articulate that value. I cannot stress that enough.
I love all three of those. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
sharing those. Go ahead for those that are listening or watching, put in the comments, what what you just got from that. There was so much rich, juicy. I mean, that was amazing what you just shared. So thank you. Hit rewind, listen to that
Yes.
again, take some notes. That was really good. Drop in the comments what your favorite nugget from that was.
Yes. Drop it in the comments. I'm
Shay,
not a gatekeeper.
yep.
Like no big.
So Shayla, you work with corporations and you also work with their women in leadership there as well. Can you share some success stories or examples of women who have learned to embody their authenticity in their leadership journeys and maybe where they started and what that turned into?
Absolutely. So you're absolutely correct. I work with companies and we have pipeline development programs for women in their leadership. And we work with women, and we also have one specifically for women of color. And our two main pillars of that is authenticity and effectiveness. So we teach women how to be authentic and effective leaders. And so I would say, one of my favorite success stories, there's a number, but one of my favorite was actually someone who was on a performance improvement plan. At this point, they're trying to performance manage her out of the org. We know how that goes, right? And was brought in, went through the program, was like, no, like, not all talent is, bad talent or, things of that sort. Worked with her. She was a part of a cohort, but I did some one-on-one mentorship with her because of her unique situation. And one of the things we uncovered was for her was shrinking. She came from a background and a cultural background where she was taught to be humble, respect authority, don't ruffle feathers, don't challenge status quo, be grateful you have a job, right? So no one knew her greatness because she shrunk herself. She didn't want to sound arrogant, right? And I think we probably can all resonate with a little bit of that. And so she went through our program, and I did some one-on-one mentorship with her. And as a result, one, she was off her performance improvement plan by the end of our program. 6 months later, she was promoted into a senior
Yes.
manager, and we always check on our alumni like a year, each year. In the next year, she was a director,
Wow.
which
Wow.
was phenomenal. One, it was her confidence in herself, her knowing how to effectively communicate. When we talk about women leading with spice, spice is actually an acronym. It's a play on words. Yes, it's your authenticity, but these are also the 5 skills that we have shown and proven that women need in order to excel effectively in the workplace. So you're authentic and
Detail?
effective.
Yes. I'm like, bring it, spill the tea. Come on.
Spill the tea. You're like, well, what is the spice? Tell me the skills.
What
Give
is
me
spicy?
something. So I was like, spice is, yes, your authenticity, but spice is also your effectiveness. So we always say women need to lead with your savvy. That's your S. That's your business savvy. You need to understand the business acumen, because that's how you can be able to articulate your value, right? P is performance. We typically have no issue here. The key about this performance is intentional performance. Curating and designing a career and selecting roles that have an impact to the top and bottom line. Not just taking on all the assignments because we're told, oh, take on everything, take on anything. Intentionally perform, right? I is your image. That is your personal brand. That's where your authenticity needs to ooze through. That needs to be very, very clear that you have a personal brand and you have unwavering values and beliefs. Unwavering. C is your communication. I've been talking about articulating that value, right? How to effectively communicate with leaders. And E is exposure. This is a double entendre. This is exposing your real self and exposure as to those personal board of directors. That networking that I know we dread, but the networking, building those relationships across your organization or across your respective industry. So that is what SPICE skills are, to be authentic and effective.
I love that. And especially that end part. We as women, we really have to create community for ourselves and have that supportive network. It's so important. And we were not created to operate alone or as little islands over here doing it all by ourselves, but a lot of times, depending on how we were raised or culturally we are, like, we are the oldest girl, or we are, we're the one that is taking care of the family, and we're doing. And I'm always teaching my clients, and we talk about that here on this podcast, is about not being human or becoming human beings, not human doings, where we're doing, like, but really be who God created us to be. So I absolutely love that. So I want to know, because being authentic really carries in not just from the corporate world or work or the things that we do, it translates into other areas of our lives. So, how does, in your journey of becoming more authentic and stepping into your power and becoming who you are today, how has that affected your life as a mother and a wife?
Ooh. Well, one, I was sharing about those affirmations I was giving my daughters, but once, you are clear about who you are, one, I always say God has a funny sense of humor because he puts pieces of you in your children. And you start to see pieces of you, and I'm like, whew, okay, that's me. I know, I'm aware of that. But it allowed me to become more emotionally aware and emotionally in tune to their needs, because I was self-aware of my own in my, who I was or who I am. So I, can be in a more emotionally present mother to them, and be more sensitive and aware to their needs, right? As you think about different generations who were like, you can't say no, don't talk back, and I'm keep ruffling feathers. I wouldn't call myself a gentle parent. I'm like semi-gentle, mid-gentle parent, right? But that, and then as a wife, I would say it allowed me to become vulnerable and actually sit in my femininity more, because I wasn't aligned. I was carrying so much masculine energy. And like you just said, the doer, right? I had to be a leader. I had to be in control because, again, I'm hustling and I'm grinding and I'm operating out of survival mode. And my husband, allow me to take care of you. Allow
Mhm.
me to lead, you know? So it allowed me to like to go with my flow more and my ease and my femininity, because I'm like, it's okay. Like, it's okay. And I got back into alignment with me as a woman, right? And as you mentioned, as a human being, not a human doer. So that has been tremendous on both aspects.
I love that. Back to what you said about the gentle parenting. I know I'm probably going to ruffle some feathers here,
Yeah.
because I think we kind of parent the same way in
Yeah.
some aspects. And I'm not the like, let my kids run wild. A
Yeah.
lot of times if there's not discipline, then there's chaos, right? And then if there's too
Yes.
much discipline, then the house is tense and doesn't feel good. So you have to have that healthy balance. And it's almost like teaching your children not to, if you have a gas stove, the fire comes up, like the child should know, I should not go touch that. There should be boundaries in place where they're like, no, if I touch that, I'm going to get hurt, but they shouldn't be afraid of it. So oftentimes when there's too much discipline, or it's coming from maybe even an abusive place, then there is that fear of just like, it's just a stove. But it shouldn't be like, I'm scared of dad or mom like that. But they should understand, like, if I do touch it, I will get burnt. There's an effect, or there's consequences to my actions. And what I have found in my parenting is that the more emotionally regulated I am, then I can discipline. It's not necessarily, I definitely, in my journey, especially my healing journey, learning the little girl inside has tremendously helped me to mother my daughters, because we had to go back and mother ourselves, and not because we had bad mothers necessarily, but maybe they did not have the tools. So when I'm triggered and, was going through my healing process, and even now when things come up, I have to mother her inside, let her know she's safe. she's okay, reminder of what the truth is, because I'll get triggered and then I'll feel like I'm alone. That's like my immediate, like I'm alone or I'm not safe. That's a big one. Sometimes it's
Mm.
like I'm bad too. So, we have all these things that come up,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
all have them, like where it's a part of us that still needs to heal, and I've learned to mother myself and really um make sure I'm in a resourced place, to be able to speak to her, the younger part of me that may be triggered, tell her the truth, that you are safe, you are supported, all of life is supporting you, like, all of those things, remind myself of what the truth is. But doing that has allowed me to do that with my children as well, and then my daughter the other day, she was super overwhelmed. We went on a trip to Jamaica for a week, and it's during the school year, and we're kind of like in this, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
I have like all these mixed feelings about school in general, but we went, and
Same.
she came back and she had some extra homework, right? And it's the end of the school year now, and she started getting pretty overwhelmed by it, but I was able to, be with her, that she was feeling overwhelmed. She was like crying, like she was doing all the things, like I'm gonna fail, I'm not going to pass my math test, like, all of these things. And I was able to be with what she was feeling in that moment, acknowledge it, like, oh, I get that you are scared right now and you feel overwhelmed, you know, and then remind her of what the truth is. Like, we're here to support you. You're going to get through this. Let's move through, each thing that you need to get done today. But really I would not have been able to do that otherwise. Otherwise, I probably would have been like irritated with her, or like, come on, let's get this done. Like, let's push through. I would have been teaching her the way that I used to operate, So, us healing, doing therapy, having coaching, using different techniques really does help that future generation. One thing about the women that listen to this podcast, a lot of us want to build legacy, not just in our wealth, but in our health, and also the way that we're passing on relationships to our children and what we're modeling for them. So I love that. And then I also love how you said about stepping into your femininity with your husband. I can completely relate to that. I was still grinding and going and going, and I had all these corporate contracts, and my husband was like, you don't have to do all of this, right? Like, I can take care of you. And I was like, "What?" And it's like it took some time for me to, like, lean into that, and it's still always a work in progress too, but, um, that's why I talk about the desires of our hearts, that's more of a feminine energy of us having these desires and letting those things come to us versus, like, grinding things out.
One thing you said, I love your story about your daughter and authenticity. One, as I mentioned before, is about alignment to your beliefs, and you are very clear about your beliefs and your values. And that allowed you to sit with your daughter because you know the values you want to instill in your children, right? The thing about being authentic is it will hold us accountable. It will force us to be consistent because as soon as you get out of alignment, you feel it. You see it in your relationships, whether that's with your partners, your children, professionally. And so when you do get out of alignment, because we are human, it happens. The goal here is not perfection. The goal here is increased self awareness so that you can get back into alignment faster. And so I love that story of like, hey, I could have done this that would have been out of alignment because that would have not been alignment with my values and beliefs. This is how I was able to be emotionally intelligent and sit with her. That's the embodiment of authenticity. Not, oh, let me see how real I can be, right? So I
I
love
love
that
that.
story.
Yeah, thank you for that. I
Yeah.
think sometimes it's good for us. women to have each other to mirror that back, and to be
Yeah.
seen. Like, I'm like, oh, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we're just, mothering out here and wifing and
It's just, there was no
doing
manual,
all
there
the
was no
things.
handbook. They just told you to have kids.
Yep. Yep. And we keep having them and and they have them and everyone's trying to figure it out.
Absolutely.
So I absolutely love that.
I love that. That's
Well, I
hilarious.
have loved having you on our show today.
Thank
We
you.
have covered so many great topics around being authentic and being effective and what that looks like in a corporate setting as well as in our home life as well.
Yeah.
What would be one thing that you would like to leave our listeners with?
Hmm. Who you are underneath all of the labels is more than enough. Not just good enough, it's more than enough. That's all I'm gonna leave. Get under those labels. It's more than enough. You are more than
Yeah,
enough as you
I
are.
love it. And
Yeah.
that's beautiful. Yeah, just discovering who we are behind all of those
Hmm.
labels and knowing
Hmm.
like that true authentic person is like more than enough, you
It's
know?
more than enough. That's the
Yeah.
person that's closest to God.
Mm. Yeah. I love
Yeah.
that. Opening up a whole nother can of
I
worms
know, right?
there.
Like
That is,
episode
yeah.
number 2.
Yes, let's absolutely do it. I'll definitely have you back. We have tons to talk about and share with our listeners here. So, yes, if you have enjoyed this episode, do all the things, okay? So, like it, share it, leave a comment. It really helps us to be able to get the word out, to be able to give this good information to other women. One of my goals in starting this podcast was really to create a community and connection. So, when you share it, when you subscribe it, you're really helping us and helping me in fulfilling on my mission in life and really empowering women. So, Shayla, I know that there are women out here that are listening and they're looking to accelerate in their leadership. How can they reach out to you?
Awesome. So one, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm LinkedIn Shayla N Atkins. So you can find me. I'm like the only one. I always carry my middle initial. You can also visit my website at www.theatkinsimpact.com. You can book a call there to learn more about developing yourself, women in your organization, or your organizational culture, right? To be more inclusive for women to accelerate in their leadership. But LinkedIn, subscribe to my newsletter, The Culture Compass, my book, Black Women Lead with Spice. You can find that on Amazon. Go get your copy today. It is on Amazon, and you can visit my website, www.theatkinsimpact.com.
Love that. And we'll be sure to link all of those links to all the things attached to this podcast, wherever you're listening to. So if you want to hear more from myself or other guest experts on topics like love, health, wealth, and career, we've got you covered. So if you're watching us on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe. If you're listening on Apple Podcast or another streaming service, go ahead and follow us. I promise you, you will not regret it. Thank you.